When I was in middle school, I used to play a lot of video games, and I had a console called PlayStation 2. It's a very old console, and there was this game called Jak and Daxter that I absolutely loved to play, and I think I probably played it way too much. But the whole point of this game was just two characters, Jak and Daxter, going from world to world, going from different terrains, battling different kinds of enemies, and leveling up. Asking whenever they ran into some kind of struggle passing a level, they would ask some kind of sorcerer. They would ask him for some kind of power up, and the sorcerer would give him the power up, and then he would conquer the level, and so on and so forth. And what I didn't realize was that the way I played that game was the way I was looking at my concept of God, of who God was, of God's fidelity. My concept when I was in middle school, was that God was playing a video game, and I was the main character. And sometimes we fall into that same concept of God. We think that God is playing this grand orchestral game with our lives, and he gets to decide all of these little things that happen in our lives. He's like, okay, you get this new job, but you lose yours. You get to be cured from cancer. You get a new diagnosis of a new disease. You get to lose your spouse, and you get to be married for 50 or more years. We think that God is just playing with our lives, and that couldn't be further from the truth. Because when we start looking at our faith in that manner, when we start looking at God in that way, God turns into this cruel, cruel God who is just playing with our lives. And that's not what he is at all. In fact, he is the God who loves us so much that he doesn't play with us. He comes down and lives among us. So when we lose that job, he's with us. When we gain that new job, he's with us. When our salary is raised, he's with us. When our salary is reduced, he's with us. When we lose our spouse, he's with us. When we get married, he's with us. When we are diagnosed with that new disease that scares us to death, he is with us. When we are suffering through that disease, he is with us. When he cures us of that disease, if he wills it, he is with us. That's the beauty of our God. And so what ended up happening was that this concept of God started leading me to what we call the prosperity gospel. And the prosperity gospel is a false gospel. It's not the real gospel. And there's a good amount of non-denominational churches that follow this prosperity gospel. And it goes like this. It says that if your life is going well, that means that God is blessing you, and you are living have faith in God. And the minute that things start going awry, that means God is not in your favor. That means God is cursing you. That means you're not doing something right. And so you go from prosperity to prosperity, and that shows you that God is in your favor. And as we read in the book of Habakkuk, in our first reading, sometimes it's very easy to fall into that. Habakkuk is writing, he's a prophet in the year around 600 BC, and he's in the southern nation of Judah. So the northern kingdom of Israel has already been taken by the Assyrians. So there's nobody, no Jew or Hebrew practicing the faith there besides those that would become the Samaritans. So in the southern part, they're seeing how this new kingdom, the Babylonians, this new kingdom is just taking over nation after nation. They've just taken over Egypt. They're taking all of the eastern part of Persia. They're starting to move over what was Israel, and so they're crouching in. They're surrounding Judah, the kingdom of Judah, and so Habakkuk is crying out to the Lord. He's saying, Lord, if you are really with us, if you are truly faithful to us, then why are we about to suffer? Why do we see all this destruction? Why do we see Egypt being taken? Why do we see the northern kingdom be taken? Why do we see Persia be taken? Why do we see all of this suffering? If you truly love us, if you truly have faith in us, why do we suffer? And so he's falling into this, he's speaking on behalf of the kingdom of Judah. And they're falling into this prosperity gospel. And so the beautiful thing is that the answer to this question doesn't come until our Lord becomes flesh, until that God who is not playing that video game, who creates out of love and sends his Son to become one of us, to take on our suffering and live amongst us and die amongst us. We don't get the answer until then. And then, it's only then that we're able to see what faith is, what true faith is. Faith is not confidence in God because he gives us good things. That can't sustain us. Faith, if we're asking for it, as the disciples are asking Jesus in the gospel, increase our faith. What is faith? Faith is fidelity to the relationship with God. Fidelity, faithfulness to that relationship with God. And how do we see this? Well, imagine if, for those who are married, if on your wedding day, you looked at each other at the moment of giving each other your vows, and you said, I promise to be faithful to you only in good times, only in health, only in prosperity, only in richness. But when the bad times come, when the disease comes, when the old age comes, when those times of poverty come, then I don't promise to be faithful to you. Then I can do whatever I want. That would be very cruel. We wouldn't even want to enter into something like that. Which is why we promise in the sacrament of marriage, we promise to one another to be faithful to one another in richness and in poverty, in good times and in bad, in health and in sickness, in prosperity and in those dark times. And that's what God does with us. He promises to be with us in good times and in bad times. When we lose that job and when we gain that new job, when we are stricken with any kind of disease, with cancer or diabetes or whatever it may be, or when we are healed from it, he is with us. He is faithful to us. So what does it mean for our faith to be as grand as a mustard seed? It means to be faithful to him in the same way that he is faithful to us. And the thing with marriage is that the end of marriage is the death of a spouse. At the death of the spouse, the marriage ends because we promise we give each other those vows till death do us part. But the beautiful thing about God's faithfulness is that it doesn't end at death. It goes beyond, because he is faithful to us at death to raise us up with him so that we can live with him for eternity. That's faith. That entrance hymn that we prayed, that we sung together, faith of our fathers, faith we have it unto even despite of dungeon, despite of sword, despite of suffering, despite of any persecution we may have, the church fathers and us remain close to the Lord. That's our faith, and that's the faith that brings us here at Mass every Sunday.